a rebuke is more effective for a wise man than 1,000 blows on a fool. In other words, if you rebuke a wise man, he'll receive it. The fool, he will not only not receive the rebuke, you could beat him 1,000 times with a rod. He's still not going to change. Huh? 100. Yeah, 100. If you give him 100 blows, he's not going to change. It's not effective. That's what comes when you meet a foolish person. You realize, okay, there's no point in me trying to correct or reason because it's not going to work. Even if I hit him 100 times with a stick, it's not going to change it.
Hey, but I'ma preach the word and none of that hate gon' work. Hey, hold up. Now I don't know what you heard, but don't believe anyone that can't show you the word.
Proverbs 17, going through the book of Proverbs, getting more wise sayings. Verse 1, better is a dry morsel with quietness than a house full of feasting with strife. In other words, Solomon's saying, look, it's better to be in a house by yourself with a snack bar than a whole house full of people with the fanciest foods. You could smell the meats and you see all the cakes. It's better to be by yourself with a snack bar than a house full of feasting with strife. This verse reminds me a lot of like Thanksgiving time. Everybody comes together, but then there's always one or two that just want to fight, whether it's some stupid as sports or politics. It just like destroys the time. It destroys the mood. It's better to be in a house by yourself. I remember, was it 2 years ago? I was by myself. I made myself a steak during Thanksgiving. I made myself a steak and some shrimp. Man, I had a good time. But there were some Thanksgivings that it was like just chaos, stress. So this is Solomon's mindset, So don't feel guilty if that you're like, I just want to be by myself, because some situations is not like that. Verse 2, a wise servant will rule over a son who causes shame and will share an inheritance among the brothers. So, in other words, look, don't take it for granted just because you're a child, that you're going to get the inheritance. A good father would see if their children are wise and good. If they're not good, the good father say, you know what, this guy over here that used to help me, I'll give him some of the inheritance. It says a wise servant will rule over a son who causes shame. So not only will he get a part of inheritance, he might make him his boss. If he has a business, he'll say, you know what, I'd rather him do the operations than my son, because this guy is wiser. And then the son is working under the guy that he hired. So don't take it for granted, especially children, that just because you have a wise father that now you could be a fool and your father's going to overlook it. No, he won't. He'll choose a servant over you, and he'll give some of the inheritance to him. So don't, Verse 3, the refining pot is for silver and the furnace for gold, but the Lord tests the hearts, right? That's one thing God does. He tests the hearts. So you could try to look all pretty and pretend, but God knows what's going on in your hearts. And that's a scary thing, because like I said in other parts in the book of Proverbs, you could fool men, you could fool yourself, but you can't fool God. He knows. He tests your hearts. Verse 4, an evildoer give heed to false lips. So somebody who's an evil person, a wicked person, when somebody says something about you that's false, they'll pay attention rather than saying, you know what, I don't believe you. Rather than examining it and seeing, if what that person said was true. No, they'll just believe it. They'll say, oh yeah. They'll give heed to false lips. A liar listens eagerly to a spiteful tongue. So someone who's a liar, if somebody has something against somebody, they'll listen to them, because that's what the liar does. Rather, like I said, rather than examining and saying, maybe you're wrong. No, their ears are very open to hearing somebody with a spiteful tongue, because it validates what they want to believe. They're not about truth. They're about lies. So they'll find other liars somebody with a spiteful tongue to justify their lies. All right. So and we got to be careful not to be these people. We got to be careful not to say, I don't like that person. So the first thing I hear about them, I believe it. That's true. No, you got to say, okay, that person is bad, but let me test it out. So don't be like these two guys, an evildoer or a liar. Verse 5, he who mocks the poor reproaches his maker. Right? So when somebody's down, don't laugh at them. Don't say, look at those sneakers you got. Look at those cheap, look at your pants, it's so tight. When you reproach the poor, you're reproaching God. He made them. So, you got to be careful. I remember when I was a kid, people used to tease me with my pants. They call me high waters, or, I didn't have the latest clothes, so they mocked me. God says that whoever did that, they're reproaching God. He who is glad at calamities will not go unpunished. So if you see a disaster happening and you're like, yeah, I'm glad it happened. God says, if you're glad at that, you will not go unpunished. Now, God might have sent judgment on them, but it doesn't mean you should celebrate. Especially if it was, like, for example, I remember the tsunami. People were just going about their day and the waves just crushed them. They did nothing wrong. They died. If you're like, yeah, man, look at, and laughing at the people as they're floating away and dying, there's something, not only there's something wrong with you, but God says that you're not going punished for mocking at somebody's calamity. Verse 6, children are the crown of old men. All right. A wise old man, their glory is not their money, not their possessions. Their glory is their grandchildren, their children and their grandchildren. I'm talking about wise children and wise grandchildren. That's their glory. And the glory of children is their father. So as a child, your glory should be your father. When people see your father, you should be like, that's my dad. And you should be proud of him. That should be the standard. If you have a wise father, and it's true. I mean, when you think about kids that don't have fathers, it's a shame to them. They're like, man, I have no dad, and nobody. He never showed me how to do anything. I don't know how to navigate through life. It's a shame. But a child that has a father and the father's a wise father, they navigated them through life, and they're like, later on, they appreciate it. They're like, man, I thank God that I had a dad that was there, that cared, that tried to help me out. That's their glory. And it's a shame if they don't have a father. 7, excellent speech is not becoming to a fool, much less lying lips to a prince. In other words, when a fool speak, they don't speak wisely. They don't speak in a way that benefits or is making their point. They're clamorous, they're foolish, they're angry. Excellent speech is not becoming a fool. You could tell, you don't even have to hear what he's saying. The way they say it, it just tells you that they're not wise. Excellent speech is not becoming a fool, much less lying lips to a prince. If there's a leader and he's a liar, they always say politicians are liars, is not very excellent, much less lying lips to a prince. So it's tough. It's tough finding leaders that are honest, but when they do lie, people notice it. It's not good for them. Verse 8, Josh. A present is a precious stone in the eyes of its possessor. When you give somebody a present, it's like it could be little, but it just warms the heart. It's so precious to them. It's like a precious stone, like a ruby or a diamond. And that should give us, incentive to give gifts to people, because they'll view it as precious. They'll view you as someone who's so considerate that you're willing to take the time and your money to do that for them. A present is a precious stone in the eyes of its possessor. Wherever he turns, he prospers. Now, the question is, whose he turns? I guess the person who's giving the gifts. So whoever gives the gifts, they prosper. Because people will like them. People will want to be there for them. So let's be wise in giving gifts. Let's not be all stingy and, oh, no, I don't want to do nothing. It could be, like I said, it doesn't have to be a big thing, but something, like a card or something. Wherever he turns, you will prosper for doing that. Verse 9. He who covers a transgression seeks love. So in other words, if somebody sinned against you, someone who's seeking love will say, you know what? I forgive you. Let's move on. Okay, it happened. Let's just move on from it. That's a person that's trying to seek love. And as believers, we should be about love. That's the number one command. To the greatest command, to love one another as Christ loved us. But if you want to do that, you got to cover a transgression. You got to say, okay, I forgive you. Let's move on. But he who repeats a matter separates friends. Okay, now let's say repeats a transgression. It means he who repeats. In other words, they bring it up. They're like, oh, remember when you did that? Remember when, remember 2 years, 5 years, 10 years ago, last week you did that? He who repeats a matter, they separate friends. People don't want to be around you because you're always bitter. You're always resentful. But he who covers a transgression, they seek love. They're like, okay, I forgive you. Let's move. They're seeking love. They want reconciliation. Verse 10, rebuke is more effective for a wise man. Remember, rebuke is a strong correction. It's not like, oh, you got to stop doing it. No, it's you better stop because what you're doing. A rebuke is more effective for a wise man than 1,000 blows on a fool. In other words, if you rebuke a wise man, he'll receive it. The fool, he will not only not receive the rebuke, you could beat him 1,000 times with a rod. He's still not going to change. Huh? 100. Yeah, 100. If you give him 100 blows, he's not going to change. It's not effective. That's what come when you meet a foolish person, you realize, okay, there's no point in me trying to correct or reason because it's not going to work. Even if I hit him 100 times with a stick, it's not going to change him. Verse 11, an evil man seeks only rebellion. Someone who's evil wants to usurp. They want to rebel. They want to oppose. An evil man seeks only rebellion. Therefore, a cruel messenger will be sent against him. Because eventually, if you keep rebelling, you're going to rebel against the wrong person, and they're going to go after you. So don't be a rebel, whether it's in the government, in the church, and the cruel messenger doesn't have to be a person. God himself could be that cruel messenger for that rebellious person. Verse 12, let a man meet a bear robbed of her cubs rather than a fool in his folly. So in other words, Solomon is saying, look, it'll be better for you that you met a bear that somebody's taking their babies. Now, mind you, if you do that, the mama, they always, there's a phrase called mama bear. You'll bring out the mama bear in a woman. In other words, she gets very protective and defensive. She'll fight. Solomon is saying, look, it's better to me that kind of bear, a 400 or 500 pound bear with claws and powerful jaws, rather than a fool in his folly. It's better to be around that. It's better to be in that situation with a bear than a fool who's doing stupid things. Because like they say, do stupid things, get stupid prizes. If you're around that kind of person, you might. It's like in California, the drive-bys. Usually, is a person that's quote unquote innocent that gets gunned down. Why? Because the innocent is right next to the fool. Let a man meet a bear robbed of her cubs than a fool in his folly. Because you might be the one getting murdered that day. So stay away from fools. They're worse than you taking a bear from a mama bear. They're worse than that. That's the mindset you got to have around fools. Don't be like, well, they're cool. We grew up together. No, you got to say, look, you're a fool. You're like you got a target on you and something bad's going to happen. And even worse, it's going to happen to me. Verse 13. Whoever rewards evil for good, evil will not depart from his house. So in other words, somebody did something good for you, and in return you reward them bad. You talk about them bad. You steal from them. You lie about them. God says that evil will not depart from your house. God's going to repay you for what you did to that person who did good for you. That's just so wicked, Somebody does something good for you and in return you do something bad. God himself will intervene and say, you know what? Evil is not going to depart from your house. Verse 14. the beginning of strife is like releasing water. Therefore, stop contention before a quarrel starts. So in other words, when a strife is about to come, it's like water opening. It slowly opens, but when you turn the knob, all of a sudden the water gushes out. Here Solomon is saying, look, therefore stop contention. All right, you feel there's negativity, there's negative energy coming out. He's saying, therefore stop contention before a quarrel starts. In other words, look, every fight is not worth you dying for. Like they say, there's a phrase saying, there's some things a hill you die on. And there's some things you stand your ground and say, you know what, I'm gonna fight for this. But every time there's little petty things, look, he said, therefore stop contention before a quarrel starts. In other words, you feel the tension there. Remember, contention, with tension. There's tension in the air. If you feel that tension in the air, you got to say, you know what, stop it. I'm gonna stop it, because this is not worth fighting for. Because therefore stop contention before a quarrel starts. You're gonna be quarreling. So let's not have a mindset that everything is a hill to die on. There's certain hills you die on. There's certain things you say, you know what, okay, let's move on. Okay, I'll do that, because you know what, you don't want a quarrel to start, right? And look, it says the beginning of strife is like the releasing of water. It starts off slow, it starts off with a comment. It starts off with, maybe an attitude. But you got to catch it rather than say, you know what, I'm going to open the faucet all the way. Verse 15, he who justifies the wicked and he who condemns the just, both of them alike are an abomination to the Lord. In other words, whoever praises the wicked, whoever takes pride in the wicked, like in June, Pride Month, but then condemns the just. I remember on January 6th, they arrested this 69-year-old grandma, and she's getting 2 months in jail for just walking in the building. And other people have done it and all that. All right, she did wrong, but is her crime worth 2 months as a 69-year-old woman? He who justifies the wicked and he who condemns the just, both of them alike are an abomination. They're detestable to the Lord. God does not look at them favorably. And I say this, a lot of Christians, they call themselves Christians, yet they support homosexuality, they support abortion, they say they do, or they make excuses. God says you're detestable. And the book of Revelation, chapter 20, verse 8, says that the detestable are going to be cast into the lake of fire. All right, so let's not try to minimize, say, well, I have my opinion, and I think abortion is okay in this and that area. No, you're detestable in the eyes of God. And even worse, you're not even basing it on the scripture. You're just basing it on your own understanding. Verse 16, why is there in the hand of a fool the purchase price of wisdom, since he has no heart for it? Why is there in the hand of a fool the purchase price of wisdom, since he has no heart for it? In other words, a fool might say they want wisdom, but their heart shows that they're not about wisdom. They'll say, oh yeah, I want wisdom. I really do. I believe that if I get more wisdom, it'll benefit me, it'll protect me from death. But their heart, since he has no heart for it, in other words, by his actions, his lethargic attitude towards it, his apathy, you realize he has no heart for wisdom. So why is there in the hand of fool the purchase price of wisdom? In other words, he's like, yeah, I want it. I'll even pay books. In other words, they'll pay for the book, but they won't open the book. Yeah, they'll make the time, but while they're there, they're zoned out. They're thinking about other things. Why is there in the hand of a fool the purchase price of wisdom, since he has no heart? God is saying, why to the fool? Why is the fool even bothering having the price, doing these prices, when in the end he really doesn't want it? Maybe in his mind he realizes he needs it, but then by his action it shows that he doesn't want it. That's the thing. You got to want wisdom. Like it said throughout the book of Proverbs, seek her more than fine treasure and pure gold. If you have that mindset, then that's a wise mindset. The fool's mindset is, okay, I'll pay for the books, I'll make the time, but I'm just going to think about something else. No. Verse 17, a friend loves at all times. All right, a friend loves at all times, whether you're at the highest point of your life or at your lowest point. They don't abandon you when things get rough. They're there. They love you at all times. And a brother is born for adversity. You know, in the Bible, when you go through the Bible, you read about brothers always fighting each other. You know, there's contention. You know, even I can confess, me and my brother, we've had times of adversity. You know, maybe it's that sense of trying to one up, that, want to be the alpha. But that's what a brother is. A brother is born for adversity. In the end, you'll always be there. You'll always be there for your brother. But there's always that contention. You're always trying to be the alpha in the pack. So, it is what it is. Verse 18. A man devoid of understanding shakes his hand at a pledge. In other words, someone who does not understand, they'll agree to be a surety for somebody else. They'll say, okay, I'll put my credit for him. That's a person that lacks understanding. I mean, and honestly, I've done that because I lacked understanding. I was simple. I didn't know that doing that was wrong. A man devoid of understanding shakes his hand in a pledge and becomes surety for his friends. Now all of a sudden, okay, I'll back him up with my credit. That's a man devoid of understanding. That's one thing when you go through the book of Proverbs, I hope you leave understanding that you should not give out your credit to anybody. Don't do that, because you'll be a man devoid of understanding. Because in the kindness of your heart, you might want to do what, that guy's in a tough situation and I want to help. But God says you're a man devoid of understanding by doing that. Verse 19, he who loves transgression loves strife. So someone who loves sin, they love to fight. A sinner loves to fight. Because a sinner wants their way. They don't want it God's way. They want it their way. He who loves transgression loves strife. And he who exalts his gate seeks destruction. Okay, in the old times, exalt your gate means like you built your wall around your property. Because you want to protect it. And also you wanted to show off. You want to say, this is my house. It's like in the old days, they built moats and it was like for a castle. So if you build up your property, you're going to seek destruction because people are going to look at it and say, wow, this person must have something valuable in there that he's trying to protect his property. So let's go in there. So don't be so extravagant that you're like, I got to get these gates all over my community or over my house, these guards and everything, because you might invite destruction. You know how many videos I've seen of people driving into their garage? They have nice houses and right behind them there's 4 guys with guns and they're coming in their garage and rob them. You got to be careful. Don't build up your gate. He who exalts his gate, and not even built your gate, is exalt. It's like, wow, look at my gate. Isn't it great? If you do that, you're going to seek destruction. You're asking for trouble. Verse 20. He who has a deceitful heart finds no good. Verse 20. He who has a deceitful heart finds no good. In other words, somebody who's deceitful, a deceiver, they'll find no good. They'll find no good in any situation. Who has a deceitful heart finds no good, and he who has a perverse tongue falls into evil. A crooked tongue, somebody who twists things around, they'll fall into evil. Because the truth will come out. So they might prosper for a season, but in the end, they're going to fall into evil. Verse 21, he who begets or bears, who has a child, he who begets a scoffer does so to his sorrow. And the father of a fool has no joy. So if a parent has a child and all they do is scoff, they mock, especially at their wise parents, they're like, they're a bunch of prudes, they're a bunch of religious fanatics. It says, he who begets a scoffer does it to his sorrow. In other words, the parents are not happy about it. They're very disappointed in that child. And the father of a fool has no joy. When a child grows up, become a man, and that child is a fool, the father is like shaking his head saying, oh my gosh, I tried my best. I try to teach him the right path, and look at what he's doing. He's having 3 baby mama dramas. He doesn't have a job. It's the father of the fool has no joy. So as children, you shouldn't want to make your father disappointed. You should try to want to make him pleased, especially a wise father. Verse 22, a merry heart does good like medicine. So, when you have a cheerful heart, it's like medicine. You ever been even sick or even depressed, and somebody says a joke or just talks to you, it just revives you. It's like medicine. And it's scientifically proven. When you smile, it releases endorphins. So it is like a medicine. But a broken spirit dries the bone. If somebody's broken, if somebody's spirit is broken, somebody told somebody something that's hurtful, it's like you just suck the life out of them. They could have been on cloud 9, but the minute you told them something that was bad or hurtful, it just dries them up. So we got to be careful, and you got to realize there might be situations that might happen to you in your life. Especially like males. You might approach a woman, might like her, then come out to find out she doesn't like you. That will dry your spirit. You might have been all, motivated and everything, but then, whoop, all of a sudden it dries your spirit. So you got to be aware of that too. Verse 23, a wicked man accepts a bribe behind the back. All right. So if you're wicked, that's what you do. You're all about bribes. A bribe is something that you do to benefit yourself in secret. That's a wicked man. Whoever does that is a wicked man, accepts a bribe behind the back to pervert the ways of justice. In this sense, talking about a judge. So a judge, instead of judging righteously, he'll take a bribe and he'll side with the person that gives them the money, or the position or the power. That, there are a lot of judges like that. They don't judge righteously. They judge to benefit themselves, to promote themselves. Verse 24, wisdom is in the sight of him who has understanding. Wisdom is in the sight of him who has understanding. So in other words, somebody who's wise, someone who understands, they see wisdom, and that's like their goal. That's their thing that they want. That's the thing that they desire most. Wisdom is in the sight of him who has understanding. It reminds me of somebody who's holding an M16. They're looking downrange. They have their sights on wisdom. But the eyes of a fool are on the ends of the earth. So in other words, a fool, what they want, they look. What does it mean their eyes are in the end of the earth? In other words, in those times, the end of the earth was like the ocean. You look beyond, and you're like, what's beyond there? They're not looking for wisdom. They're just so preoccupied with things that they can't even fathom. It's no good. It's pointless. The eyes of the fool are on the ends of the earth. But the man who has understanding, he has his eyes locked on wisdom. Verse 25, a foolish son is a grief to his father. Just like go up a little bit. He will beget us a fool. Keep going. Right here in verse 21, it says, and the father of a fool has no joy. In verse 25, it says, a foolish son is a grief to his father. In other words, don't be a foolish son. Even if your father's dead, you try to walk and honor him. Be wise for your heavenly father. Say, you know what? I'm going to be wise for my heavenly father. I want to make my father glad. But if you're a fool, is a grief to his father and bitterness to her who bore him. The mother will look at the foolish son. She's bitter. She, oh, what a letdown. I can't believe he's doing that. You don't want to do that as a child. You want to make your parents happy, proud. You don't want your father grieving and your mother bitter because of your foolish decisions. Verse 26, also to punish the righteous is not good, nor to strike princes for their uprightness. Again, it reminds me of the verse before. It says, he who justifies the wicked condemns the just are an abomination. So you shouldn't punish the people that are doing right. If there's somebody's doing right, don't be like, oh, it reminds me of the tax system. Somebody's working hard and everything. Oh, we're going to tax you now more, while this guy who's collecting welfare, he doesn't pay taxes. That's wrong. It's not right to punish someone who's doing the right thing. They're working, they're paying the tax. Now you're going to add to their burdens. Also, to punish the righteous not good, nor to strike princes for their uprightness. You know, if a prince does what's right, it's not good to smite him and say, you know what you're doing is wrong, when he's doing the right thing. You know, if it's like a prince who said, you know what, we're going to outlaw abortion, and then the vice president just smacks him. That's not good. He's doing what's right. 27. He who has knowledge spares his words. In other words, if you have understanding and knowledge, you won't speak everything you know. You'll hold back things. You'll be quiet for a season. Because one, you're trying to understand, and two, you're trying to say your thing in a way that's, concise and also clear, which concise means. But he who has knowledge spares his words. You don't just speak for hours. He who has knowledge spares his words, and a man of understanding is of a calm spirit. So a man who has understanding, when they present their understanding, they're calm about it. They're not yelling. They're not boisterous. They're not going berserk. A man of understanding is of a calm spirit. And that's something we all need. Or I need to work on. I have a lot of understanding, but I have to learn how to present it in a calm way, or else I'm not a man of understanding. And he who has knowledge spares his words. So you hold back. And that's why it leads to the next verse, because these two verses are related. Even a fool is counted wise when he holds his peace. It's like if there's like a discussion and there's wise people talking and there's a fool in the midst of them. If the fool is quiet and going, the wise people would be like, wow, this guy probably knows some stuff. Even a fool is counted wise when he holds his peace. In other words, what Solomon is trying to teach us here is, look, just learn to be quiet. There's an urge in you to want to express yourself and say what you got to say, but learn how to master to be quiet, because even a fool is counted wise when he holds his peace. When he shuts his mouth, he is considered perceptive. In the King, click on it. In the King James says he's considered a man of understanding. Right? Scroll down. He is esteemed a man of understanding. So even a fool, when they're quiet, even the wise people be like, wow, this guy, he might not be foolish. He might not be that foolish after all. He could be thinking the dumbest thing in his mind. But because he's quiet, he's esteemed a man of understanding. And Solomon, again, he's trying to reiterate, learn to be quiet. There's certain times you might want to say something or feel something, but just walk away, just say, and just hold it. Because then you'll be, you'll be esteemed as a man of understanding. People look at you highly for doing that. All right. So with that, we'll end it there. Anybody has a question, comment, concern? No?